You're not drying up. You're not losing your mind. You are being initiated into your highest self. Let me show you how menopause can be the most sacred transition of your life. I'm Dr. Amy Holda Weinstein, a board-certified OBGYN. Welcome to the Inner Temple. Welcome to the Inner Temple. This is your sacred space to come home to yourself. Here we explore the truth of your temple, your body, your mind, your emotions, your soul. My intention is simple: to help you remember who you are in all your glory, and to teach you what you were never taught about your health, your hormones, your cycles, your symptoms, and the sacred wisdom underneath it all. So grab your tea, wrap yourself in your softest blanket, and get cozy with me. You and I are about to have a soul-nurturing, heart-awakening conversation about your temple. Hello, my love. It's nice to see you. It's nice to be here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Amy Holda Weinstein. It's a mouthful, but you can call me Dr. Holda. And I want to say thank you for allowing me in your energetic circle, in your home, or wherever it is that you are right now. I'm really excited about our time together because it is my intention to not only teach you about your body, all the things that we just don't talk about enough as doctors, as the medical field in general, just leaving women with very little information and therefore not really capable of advocating for themselves in the healthcare system. But I also want to create the bridge in you with your mind, your emotions, your heart, and your soul. Because what I have found is that medicine ignores these other bodies. But when you address them and you find balance and harmony with all these parts of you, miraculous things happen with your body. And this is my intention for you. So I hope you got your warm cup of tea. I have mine. Or whatever it is that you like to drink. Maybe it's some coffee, depending on the time it is over there. Your blanket, some socks. I want you to get comfortable because I want you to listen to me with all parts of you. And so just so you know what is about to come, I'm going to go over the medical knowledge or the aspects that pertain to our body first. And today we're talking about menopause. And then we'll dive into all of the emotions that come up for us, what's happening with our mind, and the meaning that has for our soul, and the sacred questions that our life is asking us to answer so that we can find balance and enter to the purpose of the next chapter of our lives. But before we start all of that, there is always an intention setting that I like to do with all of my clients, my coaching clients. And this is just going to allow the energy between you and I to flow, for you to get exactly what you need from this conversation. So if you could close your eyes, taking a big, deep belly breath and relaxing as you exhale. And I'm going to read my intention for our time together today. My beloved, we enter into this sacred space, awake and aware of the one infinite light that also lives within us. In this stillness, we connect soul to soul and evoke the power and spirit of unconditional love to heal all shadows, all imbalances, all wounds, and to actualize the miraculous healing we seek and that we are, and to celebrate infinite life. So you can open your eyes, and thank you for sharing this moment with me. So today we're talking about menopause. I want to first start by talking a little bit about how we got here. How is it that we have such an advanced field of medicine? And I have women today telling me, I never heard of this. You are the first person to ask me about these symptoms. No one ever made the connection between my hormones and, this brain fog that I'm talking about, or my lack of motivation, or my depression diagnosis, or my heart symptoms. How did we get here? Well, I can tell you that when I was trained in residency, when I went through my training to become an obstetrician and gynecologist, my training in menopause was very scant. And although I would say comparatively it was better, I trained at Johns Hopkins, it was still not where it needed to be. 90% of what I know today that changes the lives of my patients, I learned after I finished my training. I took it upon myself to go get the extra certifications, the extra, what we call continuing medical education credits, the conferences and the classes on the books, so that I can understand what exactly my patients were going through, and also some of the things that I started to notice in my body. And then to make matters even worse, a study called the WHI study basically vilified hormones and concluded that hormones were dangerous and that nobody should be on it. And so an entire generation of our mothers and their mothers were taken off of hormones. And they were done a disservice. And years later, the data is reanalyzed, only for us to realize that it was actually the wrong conclusions that were made, and that hormones are very beneficial in the right patient. So let's talk about what those symptoms could look like. And let's also talk about more than just hormone replacement therapy, because I think in the current movement that I'm seeing, which is great because we're getting more attention on perimenopause and menopause, there is this hyper focus on hormone replacement therapy, but there's a bigger conversation that needs to happen. And so we're going to do that today. Some of the common symptoms that you've probably already heard of involve things like hot flashes, night sweats, probably even trouble sleeping. Most people have heard that these symptoms are associated with menopause. Also things like low libido or vaginal dryness. What some women don't know, however, is that those symptoms could actually start as early as your mid-30s. And sometimes your early 30s. I've had patients who have suffered from vaginal dryness. And when I do an exam, I'm starting to see the signs of what we call atrophy, which is what happens when your estrogen levels begin to decline. And so you can start to go through perimenopause, where the testosterone usually is the first to fall, and then the others will follow. And then you have fluctuations in your hormones, causing an array of symptoms. Things like mood swings. All of a sudden, you are diagnosed with depression or anxiety, or you're irritable. You lack motivation. You feel like you've lost your sense of purpose. And unfortunately, some of those feelings are associated with what happens to us right at that time in our lives. Many of us have our children finally getting older and either sort of becoming more independent or going off to college. Some of us, unfortunately, have relationships that either don't work out or we've just been in it for a while and we just think, it's just the phase of the life that I'm in. But more often than not, I find that when we address perimenopause and menopause, every woman tells me universally that they feel alive again. They have this desire and this love for life and this drive, and their relationships are great again. And so ask yourself if you're feeling a sense of sort of decline in your life, like just not really interested in anything anymore. Ask yourself if this could be your hormones. Now, some other symptoms, and perhaps these aren't as well known, are things like brain fog, where you just seem to forget things more than before. I know I'm someone who's constantly looking for my phone. And so I told my husband, you can't use that as one of my symptoms. But if you're finding that that's happening more often, or you're losing other things, or you can't remember things mid-sentence, or it's harder for you to concentrate on your projects, your performance is starting to lag at work, you're really starting to find that your mental functioning is also declining, it's most likely your hormones. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but doing something about it as early as possible is going to be key to protecting your brain function. Other symptoms that are not very well known include things like heart palpitations, severe fatigue, mood swings, feeling really depressed or very anxious. And some of the vaginal symptoms, in addition to the dryness, can feel like painful sex. It can also be recurrent bladder infections, which come from, again, that lack of estrogenation in the tissue. And so you're more prone to bladder infections or UTIs than you were before. So if you're getting those back-to-back UTIs, think estrogen, especially in the vaginal tissues. And for some women, it'll manifest as recurrent vaginal infections. Again, because that fall in the estrogen in the vagina will make it a little bit harder for the vagina to buffer its own pH, and therefore you could be predisposed to getting some vaginal infections. So if you're struggling, if any of this sounds familiar and you're sitting there thinking, that's me, or I know someone like that, before we talk about hormone replacement therapy, let's talk about things that you can do right now without ever seeing a doctor. If you live in the United States like I do, it's unfortunate to say that our way of living is not very friendly to this phase of our lives, because the diet is generally high in carbs, very inflammatory. Our lifestyle and our priorities predispose us to having a very, very stressful life. And we aren't as savvy with holistic health as some of the other women people that I've met in other countries. I've traveled to various countries in Africa, South America, Europe, and most people, cultures, countries have a general sense of what well-being looks like that goes beyond drugs. And we've been done a disservice as a country because that education is not as readily available, and it certainly isn't taught to us very young. And so it's important to undo a lot of bad habits during this phase of your life. The very first thing that I think you should consider and look at is how you're eating. Think about what you had yesterday, if you can remember, or maybe what you had today. And look at how much of that was a whole plant-based food, something that came from nature, grew from the earth, not processed, no added sugars or preservatives. So if it's packaged and put together for you, comes with a wrapper, it's a granola bar or whatever that is, anything that was manufactured is probably going to have some inflammatory triggers in it. Now, there are many companies coming out that are making really clean products out there, but you're going to have to do your research, and you're going to have to make sure that that's the case, because it certainly isn't the default. But you want to start just by looking at your diet and try to commit to eating foods that are purely natural and organic. So that may mean that you're going to start cooking your own foods. Get creative, get curious, look up different recipes. Food should be enjoyed. It should not feel like a diet. And one of my favorite ways of eating is the Mediterranean diet, which is what I follow. And I love the spices and the flavors. Anyone who tells you you need to eat a salad all day and, suffer through your eating isn't doing you a favor and probably doesn't understand nutrition. So your goal is not to torture yourself, but to start to look at food differently, and to start to you can even pretend that you live in a country where you only have access to the farmer's market. And so if that were the case, what would you make with the ingredients that you have that would taste phenomenal? So get curious, get creative, and commit to changing the way you nourish your body. You want to also be mindful of certain toxins that are present in our environment. BPAs, phthalates, they're all phytoestrogens. They can disrupt our hormones. And so try to see, if you can, and this is also going to require a commitment to reading labels, doing your research, checking out the company, which I do find that more and more often, at least this generation is very open to that. It doesn't feel like a burden. But you want to try to get products that have that, vegan, kosher, natural label as much as possible, and do your research, read the labels. And unfortunately, a lot of the products that are marketed to us, especially us Black women, tend to have a lot of these ingredients that are just not good for our hormones. So commit to cleaning up that aspect of your environment. Look at your cosmetics, your lotions, your home care cleaning products as well. The next thing I want you to do is to commit to drinking more water, but not just any water. Drink alkaline spring water. Now, there are some exceptions, and these are medical exceptions. Some people should not drink alkaline water, but for the most part, this is going to be a good recommendation for you. And of course, you should always double check with your doctor if you have several medical conditions to make sure that that's safe for you. But if you don't and you're relatively healthy, this is going to be your best option. I have lots of patients who invest in filtered water. That's also great. But the water you consume makes a huge difference. And try to increase your water intake. Because I can tell you again, if you live in the United States, you're probably not drinking enough water. It's just not the way that our culture has engineered us to navigate our lives. I remember traveling to Senegal, and it is a warmer country, but you're sort of served water everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, someone is offering you water. I think in the American culture, we have access to so many other beverages, all of which tend to be loaded with sugar, that the habit of drinking water sort of has fallen to the wayside. But that has to change, especially in this new chapter of your life. You are just going to feel better. Now, to help you with your nutrition, especially in this phase, you want to make sure that you're either taking a multivitamin or focus on specific multivitamins, specifically vitamin C as in cat, vitamin D as in dog, and then the B vitamins can also be very useful. Now, magnesium is great, especially if you're having some trouble sleeping. You can get some magnesium. The triple blend magnesiums are great, and you can take that at bedtime. I'm not someone, even though I am trained in herbal therapies, I don't believe in starting 15 different supplements just because they have all these great benefits. I think you should try to get as much as you can from your diet, if you can. And then, start out with those that are a little bit harder to get from your diet based on where you are and what you're consuming. And based on how you're responding and how you're feeling, generally that's when I would recommend adding another supplement. And it'll be really kind of catered to what that patient in front of me needs. So think of that in a similar way for yourself as well. When you're thinking about which supplements to add, ask yourself, is this something that's readily available in my diet? If so, how can I incorporate more of that? And if not, is this something that I need? And again, if you need some more support with that, you're welcome to join me in Awaken Medicine. And the link is going to be in the box below this video. And we have a community there where you can ask questions on the forum, in our Q&As, and I'm happy to help you and guide you with that as well. Now, exercise is always sort of a fun one to talk about with my patients because I have those in two categories. I have those patients who don't exercise at all, and it's just not something that's part of their routine, and they sort of dread that conversation. And then I have those who they exercise regularly, and generally they say something like, I go to the gym 3 times a week. They have a cardio routine, and then they have their weightlifting routine. And it's very common for women in this phase of their lives to start to notice a little bit of muscle mass loss or just loss of tone. And so they want to try to rebuild that. And that can be a struggle when your testosterone levels are falling. Regardless of which category you're in, I can say that what serves everyone and what can serve you is to just commit to increasing your heart rate for a 15 to 20 minute period every single day of the week, rather than that intense workout just 3 times a week. So things like going outside and taking a walk, and try to be as present as you can when you're out there and walking. Make it a brisk walk so you can get that cardio in, but be very present. Pay attention to how the air smells, how it feels on your skin, the color of the sky, sounds around you. Don't be in your head. Try to be present and watch how that walk is not just going to be great exercise, but is going to be very balancing for your physiology as well. You can also do other things like swimming. I have some great creative patients who run up and down their stairs in their house a few times. You can jump rope in place in the morning. Think of this as, think of ease. How do I make this easy and fun? I know my twin sister loves Zumba. Yes, I have a twin. That's always a big shocker for most people. But I do have a twin that I love dearly. And she likes Zumba. And I've never tried it. I've always wanted to try it. But you want to do something that you enjoy. You want to do something you enjoy. I personally love to dance. I also like the jump rope. And I like taking walks. I am not a runner. I've never been. Just thinking about it already makes me feel like, life is not great. But I don't need to. So think about what you enjoy and do something every day rather than having to schedule it, having to make it something else you got to check off on your list. Now, I often get questions like, well, what about black cohosh and soy and ashwagandha and the maca root, right? All the things that you were already told could be helpful for menopause symptoms. Well, the data on each one of those is a bit hit or miss. Depending on who you read, you may find anywhere from about a 40 to 60% effectiveness. And unfortunately, the quality of some of these herbs is not where it needs to be. And that's hard for a consumer to determine. I use a specific source when I prescribe herbal supplements to my patients to make sure that we are getting a good quality herb and we know for sure, is this going to work or not work? You may have tried something perhaps that didn't work, but had you tried it with a different company, perhaps you would have a better result. The other trick with herbs is that you also have to be very consistent. And in my experience, you generally won't see results until about 45 to 90 days, which is a bit of a big window. So I would say stick to a supplement or an herb for the 90 days. And for herbs, because these are active ingredients, you should notice a shift, and it's going to be in whatever you're trying to use it for. So for example, if you're using ashwagandha to increase your libido, within 90 days of using a good quality herb, you should know whether the ashwagandha is working for you or not. Now, I'm going to list somewhere on this video a couple of herbs and what they are useful for. But, I'm not going to go into them into detail because I do think that each one is going to be very specific to what you need. So you're not going to have all of the menopause symptoms. And so some of these herbs may not be what you need exactly. Some of the herbs that I find very useful are not in mainstream. Things like Vitex or Chaste Tree is the other name, which is great for progesterone support. THEAS, which is great for libido and boosting your testosterone. So a lot of the really effective ones aren't really talked about that much. And then those that are okay, they do work in some people, that are very popular, sometimes are just overused or misused and not properly used. So again, if that's something that you are interested in diving more into, feel free to join my inner circle in Awakened Medicine, and we can definitely talk just about herbs and supplements. Now, I want you to take in a big, deep breath. And the next thing we're going to dive into is what exactly is happening and the meaning, the spiritual meaning of this chapter in your life. So let's talk about emotionally some of the things that are happening to us as we're going through perimenopause and menopause as women. And this is where I want you to maybe open up a journal, grab a pen or a paper, because things are going to come up for you, and I want you to write down the things that come up for you. I'm going to describe what I hear very often, also some of the things that I've experienced. This moment of our lives is one where the similar, common, shared experience comes up to the surface. Emotions like grief, fear, this feeling that we're being erased, losing our youth, losing our beauty, losing our fertility, right? As our children are getting older and leaving, losing our purpose, no longer being needed. Ask yourself if some of these feelings have come up for you. The other emotion that's very common is anger. And it's generally going to be anger over spending your life, the majority of your life, serving others. Maybe building other people's dreams and not yours. A life where you weren't at the center of it, but everyone else was. Now you find yourself having to face that. There's a shift that's asking to happen. A shift from getting your validation, your meaning, your purpose from everything outside of you to now getting it from within. This transition is asking you to step away from a life of doing, of focusing on what everyone else thinks about you, on what they expect of you. And start to ask yourself the big question, the most important question of your life, which is, who am I? So my love, who are you? You are not that job or your career or your marriage or the family or all the things you've achieved. You're none of those things. In fact, you're not the thoughts that are going through your head, the emotions that dominate your day, the diagnoses that you have. You are none of those things. Who are you? What did your soul come here to do? And who is she? What matters to her? What ignites your passion? If you were here by yourself and no one else, what would matter to you? If other people's judgments and criticisms and opinions of you and what you did didn't even matter, what would you be doing? This transition is a great sacred transition. You've had that time in your life to get all the experiences you've accumulated, to run after that thing that you thought was going to make you happy successfully, or perhaps, you have some regrets. But none of that matters now. None of that matters as we begin to be faced with our own mortality, with the fact that we are aging, as we begin to start to feel the weight of a life that was lived just for others. It is simply asking you to answer the question, who am I? So I want you to grab that pen and paper, and I'm going to give you 3 powerful questions to reflect on and to answer for yourself. And when you do, you will begin your sacred transition. And so the first question is, what parts of myself have I abandoned in the name of being needed? And am I ready to return to them now? What parts of myself have I abandoned in the name of being needed? And am I ready to return to them now? The second question that you're going to answer is, if this is the beginning of my most powerful era, how would I show up differently in my body, my boundaries, and my joy? If this is the beginning of my most powerful era, how would I show differently in my body, my boundaries, and my joy? I loved answering this question for myself. And then the last question that I'm going to give you today is, what truths has my body been trying to tell me for years? And am I finally ready to listen? And a tip with answering that last question is, if what comes to mind is, let's say, an issue you've been struggling with, let's say you've had chronic back pain for a while, I want you to do something that's going to sound funny, but is going to feel very natural when you try it, because it is natural to do. And that is, you are going to tune in to your back pain. When you feel it, you're just going to feel it. You're not going to judge it, and judge it feels like, oh, here comes that back pain again. I need to go take some medicine. Why does this always happen? Oh, not today, right? You're not going to do that. You're just going to allow it to be. Allow it. You are allowed to be here and feel its quality, its nature, its location. Ask it, what do I need to know? I'm ready to listen. Give it a try, and whatever comes up, whether it's an image, a memory, a thought, an emotion, write it down. Write it down. And this is how you're going to begin to heal what your body is holding. Now, this is the kind of work that we do in the Awakened Medicine Circle. And you do it through a systematic guidance where you can really learn how to listen to your body and connect to it, to every part of yourself. You learn the meaning of your emotions. You know, we tend to be so scared to feel, but our emotions are just messengers of the soul. And you'll learn that in Awakened Medicine. And the entire journey of Awakened Medicine is to get you to become the human being that you are meant to be. One that understands and co-creates with their emotions, not fights them. One that knows how to use their mind to create the most beautiful, magical life for themselves, not allow the mind to torture you. and one that has peace and health in your body. And most importantly, one that is awakened to the gifts of their soul and the nature of who they are. And this is a journey that you have already started just by being here with me, just by answering these questions. And this is what I'm going to do with you. This is what we're going to do together. Is whenever we talk about any physical symptoms, whenever we talk about the medical aspects that I want you to empower you to know, we're always going to talk about all these other parts of ourselves. Because this is how we return to ourselves. So I hope that this was a meaningful time that you spent with me today. And I hope you wrote down those questions and that you're going to answer them. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed with the notification. One of these episodes, The Inner Temple, will come out every Saturday. So make sure you subscribe. And if you want to go on this journey with me for total wholeness, then definitely join us in the next round of Awakened Medicine. I'm sending you my deepest love, all my light. And I want you to remember that you are the one.